Imagine you just had like a genuine light bulb moment.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a concept for a brand new game-changing app, or maybe it's an internal system architecture upgrade at your job that beyond a shadow of a doubt is going to save your engineering team hundreds of hours a month.
Oh, yeah, that's the best feeling.
Right. And when you get that idea, there's this massive, almost, biological urge to just start building.
Yeah, you just want to go.
Exactly. You want to spin up the repositories, get the developers in a room, and watch this thing come to life on a screen immediately.
Which makes sense. I mean, the inception of an idea is always the most intoxicating part of any digital product lifecycle.
Totally.
The possibilities just feel infinite because the technical constraints simply haven't shown up to ruin the party yet.
They haven't crashed it yet. But today, we are unpacking a piece by Tobias Reidenhag. He's the head of design at Intunio.
Right.
And his article argues that this raw, unfiltered urge to build is exactly how digital projects end up bleeding budgets dry.
It really is, because jumping straight into a complex build just because the momentum feels good, that is a very dangerous game.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how to successfully bridge that massive gap between, having a brilliant concept and actually writing the code.
Without falling into the trap of endless corporate bureaucracy, which is the usual alternative.
Exactly. Because
Oh.
it's rarely clear from the start what the actual scope of the build is, right?
Yeah.
Let alone the long-term consequences of like the early database or platform choices you make in that initial rush of excitement.
Right. I think of it like deciding to build a 70-story high-rise and immediately ordering the custom Italian marble for the penthouse
Oh, wow.
before anyone has even tested the soil to see if it's a sinkhole.
That's a great way to put it. You are definitely spending money and making things happen.
Oh, you're very busy.
Right, but you have no idea if the ground can support the weight.
Exactly. And the mechanism the Intunio article focuses on to prevent that sinkhole scenario is called a prestudy.
A pre-study.
Okay. Yeah. Now, theoretically, the moment of high uncertainty right after an idea is born is the exact moment a pre-study is supposed to map out the terrain.
But the source text is very quick to point out a harsh reality here, which is that pre-studies usually have a terrible reputation in the industry.
Oh, they are notoriously unpopular.
Yeah.
And the article makes a really sharp observation right out of the gate about why that is.
Which is what?
Well, in most organizations, the concept of a pre-study has been chronically misunderstood. It gets warped into this administrative nightmare.
Like just endless paperwork?
Exactly. People associate the term with endless feasibility matrices, massive requirements documents, and just a bureaucratic slog.
That ultimately produces like a giant binder of decisions that the actual development team will completely ignore 3 months later.
Pretty much.
Let me push back on the traditional concept of this phase, though, because I have a lot of sympathy for that resentment.
Oh, sure.
Like, if a pre-study doesn't actually yield a concrete direction for the code base, isn't it just corporate theater?
It absolutely is.
Because to me, the way most enterprise organizations handle this phase, it sounds like pure purgatory.
Purgatory is a good word for it.
Right. You have product managers and analysts doing theoretical paperwork to justify their own existence.
Or to appease a steering committee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
While the actual builders are just sitting on their hands waiting to do real work.
See, that frustration is exactly the symptom of a broken process.
Okay.
When a pre-study feels like a tool booth, a preliminary hurdle you simply have to survive before the real work begins, it has fundamentally failed its purpose.
So it shouldn't feel like a side quest.
No, not at all. What you are describing is the illusion of progress. An organization feels safe because they are generating pages of documentation.
We wrote 100 pages. We must be doing something.
Right. But documentation for its own sake doesn't mitigate technical risk. A functional price study does the exact opposite.
Which is?
It creates momentum. It doesn't just analyze the problem in a vacuum. It actively moves the delivery forward.
Okay, so if we accept that bad pre-studies are just an illusion of progress, how do we fundamentally fix them?
Well, the article argues that the very first thing we have to change is how we categorize this block of time entirely.
Meaning what? We call it something else.
It's more of a core paradigm shift that Intunio brings to the table. The text explicitly states that a pre-study is not something that sits alongside development as a precursor.
Okay.
It must be treated as the very first step of an actual delivery effort. It is step one of the build.
Step one. So instead of a theoretical blueprint drawn up by a philosopher sitting in an ivory tower,
Yeah.
it's much more like pouring the foundation stones.
Yes.
It's not a conceptual drawing of the house, it is the physical concrete in the ground.
Right, because if you pour a strong, tangible foundation, putting up the load-bearing walls later is a pretty straightforward engineering process.
But if your foundation is made of theoretical sand, those walls are coming down no matter how talented your framing crew is.
That physical building metaphor captures the psychology of the shift perfectly, I think.
How so?
Well, when you treat a pre-study as a separate, isolated phase, the implicit goal for the team becomes find the perfect answer so we can write a flawless report.
Right. Produce the binder.
Exactly,
Yeah.
produce the binder. But when you reframe it as step one of delivery, the objective completely changes. The goal is no longer absolute perfection.
What is it then?
The goal is to create just enough clarity to make sound, structurally safe decisions.
Just enough.
Yeah. It is about actively driving down uncertainty so that the next phase, the actual coding, is easier and lighter.
Instead of being bogged down by unresolved questions.
Exactly. You want to clear the fog.
So if we are pouring the foundation instead of drawing a theoretical blueprint, the isolated philosopher in the ivory tower isn't going to cut it.
Definitely not.
Who is actually coring this concrete? Because historically, a lot of companies will have a design team work in a silo for 6 weeks, right?
All the time.
They come up with a beautiful, pixel-perfect user interface and then just toss it over a brick wall to the engineering team.
And that siloed approach is precisely what causes digital projects to implode.
Yeah.
The article is incredibly firm on this requirement. Both design and engineering must be in the room from day one.
Like, from the very first meeting.
From the very beginning. You need a cross-functional team because a pre-study has to focus just as much on technical constraints, architectural options, and platform feasibility.
As it does on user needs and business goals.
Exactly. If you don't have engineers evaluating the design concepts in real time, you are essentially designing science fiction.
Science fiction. I
Yeah.
love that. But that brings up a really interesting tension in the text, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. The article mentions that during this co-evolution phase, the team often creates, quote, design sketches for key views.
Right.
Now, hold on a second. If they're just sketches meant to visualize options, aren't those exactly the kind of throwaway presentation materials we just criticized earlier?
I could see why it sounds like that.
Like, how is a sketch not just corporate fluff designed to dazzle stakeholders in a boardroom?
It comes down to how the artifact is actually used in the room. The text clarifies a crucial distinction here.
Okay, lay on me.
These sketches are absolutely not polished, fake screens meant for a slide deck. They are tangible battlegrounds.
Battlegrounds.
Yeah. They exist strictly to force a conversation between different disciplines.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. How does a sketch act as a battleground?
Let's look at a hypothetical scenario. Say your team is tasked with building a really complex internal analytics dashboard.
Okay.
The designer creates a quick sketch showing a global map where user data points populate and refresh in real time, like every single second.
Sounds cool.
It does. And in a siloed organization, that design gets approved by management because it looks amazing.
Right.
And then 3 months later, the engineers look at it and realize that live updating feature requires an entirely new WebSocket infrastructure,
Oh, wow.
an overhaul of the backend indexing, and, an extra 6 months of development time.
Right. The engineers look at the approved design and realize it basically defies the laws of physics regarding their current tech stack.
Exactly. But in a cross-functional press study, that sketch is put on the table on day 3.
Oh, okay.
The engineer looks at the real-time map sketch and immediately says, look, if you want this data to auto-populate instantly, we have to rebuild our data pipelines.
Is this 1 second refresh rate really worth a 6-month delay?
Precisely. And the designer might respond, oh, not at all. I just thought it looked dynamic. A daily static refresh is perfectly fine for the user's needs.
That is fascinating. So a 10-minute conversation over a rough sketch just saved the company 6 months of engineering salary.
And a massive architectural nightmare.
So the sketch isn't the final product.
No, it is a shared reality that allows them to spot the landmines before anyone steps on them.
Wow. That is the exact mechanism of risk mitigation.
It really is. They allow discussions about complex back-end structure and user functionality to happen in reality rather than in abstract requirement documents.
Which are so easy to misinterpret.
Oh, completely. The text emphasizes that these design ideas and technical decisions must evolve together in parallel. They co-evolve.
Evolve. Right.
You cannot separate what it looks like from how it runs under the hood.
Which explains why the article insists this is step one of delivery. Those sketches aren't getting thrown away into some folder.
No, they are being continuously refined based on technical pushback until they actually become the blueprints for the real con.
And the financial implications of that coevolution are staggering when you scale it up to enterprise-level builds.
Oh, yeah. It is orders of magnitude cheaper to discover that an idea is technically unviable when it is just a wireframe sketch on a whiteboard.
Compared to when it is like 10,000 lines of code deeply embedded in your production environment.
Exactly. You are paying a very small premium upfront in time to buy a massive insurance policy against catastrophic late-stage failure.
Okay, so we have our cross-functional team in Rome. We have our engineering and design disciplines locked in this co-evolutionary dance.
Yep.
Using sketches to hash out the realities of the build, we are testing our design ambitions against our technical constraints.
Exactly.
What does the actual finish line look like? When you run a pre-study the way Intunio suggests, what do you tangibly hold in your hands when the phase is over?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the source text reveals something that completely upends how traditional project management operates here. The outcome is rarely a neat, finished answer.
And that is often the hardest pill for executive leadership to swallow.
I can imagine.
Corporate structures are heavily conditioned to expect absolute certainty at the end of a discovery phase.
They want a tidy document that says, build exactly these 10 features and it will cost exactly $50,000 down to the cent.
Exactly. But a functional pre-study deals in reality. And the reality of custom software development is never that clean.
The text notes that instead of an illusion of perfection, what you walk away with is a clearly scoped first version.
Yeah.
Or you emerge with highly realistic estimates regarding the time and effort required because the engineers have actually stress tested the concepts.
Or you simply get a much sharper prioritization of what features actually drive value.
Which is incredibly valuable for resource allocation.
It is. But this highlights an even deeper organizational psychology, I think. And it points to what I consider the single most powerful outcome mentioned in the entire article.
Lay on me.
Sometimes, the end result of a thorough pre-study is a deliberate, calculated decision to wait, or a decision to pivot entirely.
Wait, so the ultimate counterintuitive insight here is that the absolute best outcome of a massive new digital initiative might be realizing you shouldn't actually build it.
Yes, a pre-study gives you the data-backed authority to say no.
Wow.
Think about how rare that is in tech. Usually, once an idea gains momentum and a budget is assigned, the sheer excitement and political capital invested make it almost impossible to stop the train.
Oh, absolutely. People will push through obvious red flags just to deliver something.
A pre-study short-circuits that momentum. It makes it easier to say yes, to say no, or to say not right now.
Because those decisions are finally rooted in cross-examined information rather than gut feelings and executive enthusiasm.
Exactly. It takes the emotion out of it.
It effectively kills the sunk cost fallacy before it can take root.
Yes, the sunk cost fallacy is what bankrupts companies.
Right. This idea that, well, we already spent 3 months coding this feature, so we have to finish it even though it doesn't work.
But if you run a pre-study, you haven't written the heavy code yet. You haven't sunk the massive costs.
You have permission to stop the car, check the map, and realize the bridge is out before you drive off the cliff.
And we really need to reframe how we view that outcome. Walking away from an unviable idea after a 4-week pre-study is not a failure of the team.
No, it sounds like a massive strategic victory.
It is. You spent a fraction of your overall budget to protect the rest of it. You avoided a phenomenally costly mistake that would have drained engineering morale and financial resources for years.
That makes absolute sense for high-risk, unknown territory.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make me question the scale and application of this methodology a little bit.
Okay, how so?
Let's say my engineering team is just migrating an existing REST API over to GraphQL. We need exact one-to-one feature parity. The data structures are known, the endpoints are mapped, and the technical constraints are completely understood.
Right.
Am I really supposed to halt everything, assemble a cross-functional strike team, and draw sketches to co-evolve an API migration?
The short answer from the source material is absolutely not.
Okay, good.
The framework Intunio lays out is highly pragmatic. You do not deploy a pre-study as a blunt instrument for every single ticket in your backlog.
That would be exhausting.
It would be paralyzing. If the problem space is incredibly well understood and the technical constraints are fully mapped, like your API migration example, it is perfectly fine and in fact recommended to move straight into the execution phase.
So the trigger for running this process is directly tied to the level of unknown variables.
Precisely. You only unleash the pre-study when uncertainty is dangerously high.
Like when you are charting entirely new territory.
Or attempting to build a novel platform architecture, or trying to solve a complex user problem where the solution is just, vague.
The density of the fog dictates whether you need to pause and build a map.
I love that. Yes. If the sky is clear and the road is straight, just drive.
So the next time you get that brilliant light bulb moment for a massive new feature or system overhaul, before you call your lead developer and start assigning repository permissions, remember the journey we've mapped out today.
Absolutely.
We've learned that a pre-study shouldn't be a dirty word. It is not an administrative side quest or a theoretical binder destined to collect dust on a manager's shelf.
No, it is fundamentally step one of the delivery pipeline.
And the mechanics of executing that step require you to force your design ambitions and your technical realities to collide as early as possible.
By putting engineers and designers in the same room to co-evolve tangible, highly debatable sketches, you build a shared structural foundation.
You map out the hidden complexities together.
Which prevents those catastrophic, budget-destroying surprises from detonating 6 months into the build.
You are pouring the concrete foundation instead of drawing a fantasy blueprint. And most importantly, you are buying yourself the ultimate luxury in product development.
The clarity to make real, informed decisions.
Because when this process works, as Intunio designed it, it doesn't just leave you with a completed checklist.
No, it leaves behind a sharply scoped direction and a concrete starting point.
You walk away with artifacts and technical insights that the team can immediately continue building upon.
Or, crucially, it provides the undeniable, stress-tested evidence you need to safely and confidently walk away from a bad idea.
Which brings us right back to that initial intoxicating rush of adrenaline we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Oh yeah, the urge to build.
The undeniable urge to just jump in and start coding because the idea feels so good in your head.
It takes immense organizational discipline to pause, sit in the uncertainty, and build the map first.
It really does. So as we wrap up our analysis of this material, I want to leave you a final lingering thought to ponder on your own. If a pre-study's true, hidden power is giving us the clarity and the data-backed confidence to say no, or not right now, to a massive undertaking. How many of the current exhausting, budget-draining endeavors in our professional lives only exist today because we were simply too afraid to investigate their foundations before we started building?